We are 2 days away from President Barack Obama leaving office. What will his legacy be? And as the first African-American president, how did he shape race in this country? Let's discuss with Georgetown University professor Michael Eric Dyson, who is the author of Tears We Cannot Stop, A Sermon to White America, which is on sale in bookstores today. Professor, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
What is President Obama's legacy as you see it?
Well, he's an extraordinary man. I also wrote a book called The Black Presidency, Barack Obama and the Politics of Race in America, and I assess what his meaning has been to black people, in particular to the issue of race more broadly, but even more universally. The man has been remarkable. He came in and gave us health care. He saved the automobile industry. He certainly made sure that the American economy was on a better footing. He gave the American image worldwide a better, if you will, representation, high intelligence. What kind of president talks about the books he read? I don't think the incoming administration will necessarily be celebrated for its eloquence tweeting. So I think this man brought a kind of cerebral acuity and a kind of depth and gravitas that has transformed at least the modern presidency in regard to a figure who is both controversial for many people who opposed him and yet reached across the aisle with a kind of olive branch as much as he could.
So there was an expectation when Barack Obama was elected that it would inherently improve race relations because we had broken a barrier. There is a counter to that argument, which is that no, because you had an African American now in a position of power, there would necessarily be reaction formation and you would have an evening to a dip in race relations as a result. How do you see it?
That's a pretty insightful analysis there. The thing is, excuse me, Obama evoked, or at least provoked, a kind of racial animus that we hadn't seen explicitly expressed in America for quite a while. All the racist jokes against him, even in police departments. When they looked at Ferguson, some of the police people on duty were making horrible remarks about him. Politicians have said horrible things. They've tried to make them simians and animals and so on. So that kind of racial animus came above board because Obama provoked it, because his presence there brought a lot of consternation to people who thought we shouldn't be involved in this kind of thing as an American citizenry. We want a president who looks like us, not like him. So it did bring to bear some of those things. But Obama also had to deal with police brutality, the resurgence of a vital black movement under Black Lives Matter. So he had to negotiate some very hostile tensions and some contradictions within his own citizenry.
And you believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that the election of President-elect Trump was a reaction, or was, I guess, just more race-based than a lot of other people think.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's not all it was. I mean, obviously people who were poor and suffering and hurt felt, ironically enough, that a billionaire would be able to identify with them. But let's be honest. A lot of the response against Obama was for no other reason than he was a black man. If you don't like Barack Obama as a black man, there are not too many other brothers you're going to dig, because he's nice, he's genial, he's affable, he agrees with people who disagrees with him. I mean, that kind of man is extremely rare. So there's no question that part of the animus was driven by his race.
But wait a second.
But go ahead.
Just hold on a second, because I mean, how did that allow Donald Trump to be elected? In other words, if you're saying that there was some racism that went into electing Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton isn't a black male either.
Right.
So
but
how can you
the
be
birther movement? The very guy who questioned the legitimacy of Barack Obama as a black man is now the president of the United States of America. You're answering your own question.
But hold on. You think that's why people voted for him, or they overlooked that because they believed he was going to be helpful to business and make...
Your faith in the American citizenry is pretty high. They overlooked what? The fact that Donald Trump for 2 years with lethal intensity continued to assault a sitting president as, quote, illegitimate, and now, thin-skinned that he is, can't even take John Lewis saying that you may be illegitimate. Yeah, I don't think people overlooked that. I think he ginned up the racial animus. I think he appealed to the worst instincts in our nature. Unlike Lincoln, the better angels of our nature, he appealed to the worst demons in our collective enterprise of thinking about American citizenship and democracy, and as a result of that got elected because of demographic destiny. A few states voted for him. He is a very unpopular president going into his own inauguration, and he is a person who is dividing the country and yet not uniting it. I think the contrast between Obama and him is rather stark.
You have the what and then you have the how much. There are a lot of people who voted out there because they feel we've been weak on ISIS. That's color neutral.
Right.
The problems with Obamacare about keeping your own plan and the rollout, that was color neutral. The feelings about the balance of economic resurgence after 2008, again, color neutral. So while it may have been a portion of what was going on, how do you see it on balance of how it played?
But take those three, color neutral and ISIS. Many African-American people said, look, we were introduced to terror long before 9/11. The vicious police forces of America that have victimized us and the way in which white supremacy operated.
But
Number
also
two,
equivalency between having Islamic extremists wanting to eradicate the American way of life to police versus citizens.
look at this. Rudy Giuliani, and I debated him on Meet the Press, said, look, you people focus on police killings of black people when that's a small percentage of what happens.
Debate over when he said you people?
Then he said, look, he said, however, of the killings are done by black people against black people. Well, 93% of black people who are killed by black people, but 84% of white people who are killed by white people. But let's go on. Let's take his logic to the extreme here. If that's the case, how many people have died from terror in America in the last 10 years?
Not many.
I don't know, maybe 100?
Not many.
Most people have died not from Muhammad, but Billy Bob. In terms of white people, white-on-white crime has done far more to damage America than ISIS. So by Rudy Giuliani's logic, we should not be concerned about terror. I don't believe that, but I'm saying to you, even in those components you just said are race neutral, have a racial segment to them because black people and brown people experience them differently than the larger community. And then finally, think about it. They say this is the resurgence of a kind of white middle class. There are black middle classes and brown middle classes who did not go for Donald Trump. There are black and brown people who live in rural areas. So again, the adjective modifies the noun. It makes a difference to talk about white, black, red, working class, yellow working class because it makes a difference in America. Race makes class hurt more.
The book again is Tears We Cannot Stop, a sermon to white America. Professor, thanks so much.
A sermon indeed.